This is a question from @MistyWhiskers, who asked me to describe how I feel when I see my words on the page on the screen. I wrote episode 14 of Brookside, and quite frankly, we were all young and naive, and we didn't know what we were doing. And we all had to learn pretty fast. The best way to learn, I discovered, was to see your name go up after a pile of crap, to see a half hour of utter rubbish and everybody watching it and saying, who wrote this shite? And then your name goes up. That means you don't go out the house. It's just appalling, and you learn and you resolve to do better next time.
There's two feelings. One is absolute exhilaration, and the other is utter dread. No film lives up to the film in your head that you've got there. So in some ways it's always a bit of a letdown, which is a terrible thing. But at the same time, you know, it's absolutely exhilarating. It's taken such an enormous effort from so many people to get that work onto the screen that usually on the first screening I'm just kind of deeply moved that, you know, we made it. Then on the second viewing you tend to start seeing, we missed that moment, or that was not how I imagined it to be. So it's a more kind of ambivalent experience.
Well, being a director, I don't see it on the screen for the first time. I see it on the stage or, you know, on set. But I must say, it's quite thrilling always when you're working with really great actors, because they absolutely bring something to it, and it's the moment you're waiting for, I think, as a writer. It's been in your head for so long, so when you finally see the actors saying your lines and they're in costume, it's quite a thrill. And hopefully all writers can get on the set, because they belong there, because if something needs to be adjusted, they should be the ones to do it.
Well, before I see it on the big screen, I see it on a pretty small screen, my laptop. That's a mixture of watching dailies and watching director's cuts and producers' cuts, and by the time it's made it to a big screen or someone's television screen, I've watched it over and over and over again. In a way, I feel like by the time it makes it to the audience, it's ancient history for me. That's something that I worked on months and months ago. For me, the most exciting moment is when we're filming a scene itself. That's where you've done all this work on the page, discussions with the director and the actors, and the cameras are rolling, and there you see it in 3 dimensions right in front of you. And when you have a brilliant moment, something that you could never have discovered on the page, that only could happen because the actors are 3-dimensionalizing it, you feel this jolt of thrilling discovery, and you feel like you've captured lightning in a bottle.
At Sheriff Brody, what's your top 5 screenwriting tips? Number 1 is the most obvious one. You have to work, and you have to work every day, probably. And if you can break your script down into a number of pages to write each day, then that's a good place to start. It doesn't have to be a big number, it can be 2 or 3. But if you think about it, screenplays are 120 pages, and if you write 3 pages a day, it's 40 working days. It's not a huge undertaking.
Just work hard, just stay at it, and it doesn't come to anybody quickly. It doesn't come to me quickly. It takes me close to a year. Don't be too hard on yourself. When you have a really good day, sometimes it's followed by a bad day. Don't let that get you down, because you're going to have another good day.
And I've gotten on, really. Beyond hard work, you know, nothing beyond hard work. You know, I just think you don't have to be better than anybody. You just got to work harder than the bastards. And I think if you do that, if you've got a bit of talent, but a hell of a lot of application, I think you're halfway there.
Another tip is have courage. You know, write about things that matter to you, because if they matter to you, they're likely to matter to an audience. But also, don't be timid in your writing. You know, a cinematic experience should be a powerful thing, either whether it's funny, whether it's serious, whether it's dramatic, whether it's a genre piece. It needs to have kind of power.
Make sure that everybody in the cast has something to do. The quality of your cast increases exponentially if everyone is given something. Minor characters, the other leads, whatever. But it isn't just about one person, or it's not just one person that has the journey or the good lines or whatever. just to make it as lively as possible.
This one comes from Billy Wilder, don't be boring. He says, grab the audience by the lapels and don't let go. And I think about that often, you know, nobody wants to be lulled at any point. And so I spend a lot of time on the beginnings of my movies. I think they're the hardest to write because you have to be clear about your characters. You have to you want the audience to feel for them, go on this journey with them, and you also want to have good pace. And like Wilder says, grab them by the lapels and just don't let this audience out of your grip, because once you lose them, can't get them back usually, and if you do, you have to work very hard to earn getting them back, and there's no time for that.
Prepare, do your homework, know your subject, research, work out your structure, do structural map, do cards, whatever form of preparation works for you. Try out a number until you know what works for you. You know, that'll support you through the process.
Listen, it's not a book, it's not your vision, it's a shared vision. Producers, cast, director, lighting, cameramen, everybody. So if everybody hates something, you know it's wrong and it has to be changed. I think you have to find people, if you can, who share your vision. There's no point in giving your work to somebody who you know you don't respect right from the beginning, because that way great unhappiness lies. If you can find kindred spirits, even if they've got no money, that will take you a long way.
If you're leaving anything on the table, if you're finding yourself in a comfort zone, if you're not scared out of your mind, rattled with self-doubt and self-loathing and all the things that make being a writer so terrifying, then you're not really doing the thing. If you're willingly, in your own insane way, putting yourself in that place day after day, page after page, that's the best possible thing you can do for yourself.
I even retyped my favorite screenplay, which I highly advise. I retyped The Apartment by Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond. And actually the retyping of their script taught me so much.
For instance, I've always think it's a clever thing to leave myself notes for the next day. So I've never woken up and started writing with an empty page in front of me.